What's the real reason for the fight between Israel and Palestine? This is a question that has stumped researchers, politicians, and regular people for decades.
How did this disagreement turn into one of the hardest to solve in the world? Think for a moment about a place with a past that goes back thousands of years and where faith, culture, and identity have deep roots. Now, picture two groups of people, the Israelis and the Palestinians, who both claim this land as their own. How do they find their way around this complicated historical mosaic? A fight between two groups started in the late 1800s. Did you know that? Or that it has been a constant worry for people around the world since the middle of the 20th century? It's a story about competing nationalists, land battles, and long-held grudges. But what started the fire that started it all, and why does it keep going? This video will go into detail about the background of the Israel-Palestine conflict, looking at the most important events, people, and questions that have always been there. Israel, a small country with a relatively low population, is one of the most contentious regions on the planet. Fights have been going on in this region for thousands of years, raising various problems, including the primary reason why they have been battling for thousands of years. The region is known for its conflicts with the Gaza Strip, Hamas, the Temple Mount, and the West Bank. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict began in 1047 BC, when the Temple Mount was established by Jesus. After being demolished by the Babylonians in 586 BC, the Persians rebuilt it, and the Roman Empire destroyed the Second Temple, leaving only a wall. Jews started migrating to Europe because Jesus established Christianity, which led to his death. However, Jews in Jerusalem never approved of this, and due to the attention it received, Jews in Jerusalem crucified Jesus in public, leading to his death. During this time, there was a great deal of hype regarding bad attitudes toward Jews, and even now, Jews are held responsible for the significance of Jerusalem. In 306, King Valerius passed away, and his son Constantine the Great became Roman king. Constantine developed a strong fondness for Christianity and pioneered the practice of royal conversion to Christianity. Christianity began to spread throughout Rome, but hatred towards Jews also became widespread. Jews were subjected to horrific forms of torture and were routinely put to death. As a result, Jews began to flee to other parts of the world, particularly to Europe, in hopes of finding safety there. In earlier times, Jews had a positive relationship with Muslim kings due to their commonalities. The location where Jews had their second temple, known as the Dome of the Rock, was constructed at the same plot as Al-Aqsa Mosque. When this Jewish area fell into the hands of Arab soldiers, the area where Jews had their second temple was renamed Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Dome of the Rock was constructed at the exact same spot as the Temple Mount by Jews, and Muslims refer to it as Haram al-Sharif. Al-Aqsa Mosque does not allow entry for non-Muslims, and Jews are allowed to worship on the Western Hall. 2 kilometers away from this area is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is considered Haram al-Sharif. The region holds significance for Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. It is credited with giving rise to the world's 2 greatest religions, Judaism and Christianity. For Muslims, this region became the 3rd holiest location in Islam after Mecca and Medina. This has led to many concerns related to the region and the desire of all 3 populations to migrate. In 1891, the Jewish kingdom was conquered by Arabs, but Jews worldwide, particularly in Europe, had a strong desire to return to their original land. Leon Pinsker, a Jewish author, wrote Auto-Emancipation in 1891, stating that Europeans did not consider Jews equal citizens and that they needed to write their own fate and create an independent state for them. This led to the creation of the Zionism movement to get Jews their original land back. During World War I, Germany and Britain were against each other, with the Ottoman Empire supporting Germany. Britain attempted to make Jews happy by supporting Zionists, which was in fact supporting the idea of giving Israelis their own country. They even made a declaration about it, which became famous as the Balfour Declaration, which claimed His Majesty's government views favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. Throughout the Great War, Great Britain, the United States of America, and the Soviet Union were on one side, which also had Jewish support, while Germany was taking its position along with the Ottoman Empire. Jewish support was also on the side of the USSR. In 1918, Britain emerged victorious, deposing the Ottoman Empire and installing the British as the new rulers. The Balfour Declaration was faithfully carried out, and Jews who were living in other parts of Europe were given assistance and encouraged to relocate to the Palestine area, where Jews had originally called home. However, the Arab countries surrounding Palestine never liked this migration, as they were opposed to it. On one hand, Jews from Europe were migrating back to Palestine, supported by the British, while the Jewish groups started giving them money and using the money they had given them. The population of the Palestinian territory was 0.47 million at the time of the Ottoman census in 1878, but only 25,000 Jews lived there, and the rest was made up of Arabs. The Jewish population reached 85,000 by 1914, and in succeeding years, the number of Jews who arrived in Palestine was in the hundreds of thousands. British officials were assuring Arabs that peace was a priority for them and facilitating the immigration of Jewish people into Palestine. In 1922, a white paper belonging to the British people was discovered, demonstrating that they were intentionally doing so for their own profit. From 1919 to 1923, Eastern Europe was the origin of the migration of thousands of Jews. Between 1924 and 1926, around 50,000 Jews emigrated from Poland, and in total, 0.17 million Jewish immigrants arrived in Palestine between 1933 and 1936. The Jewish community was forced to relocate back to Palestine due to Hitler's rapid ascent and the widespread genocide of Jews in countries influenced by him. Jews were enraged in lending money for profit, which is condemned in Christian theology. This led to robberies, discrimination, exclusion, and violence against Jews. In 1935, the Nuremberg Law was passed, making it illegal for Jews to marry anyone who was not Jewish. Jews were stripped of their citizenship and forced into concentration camps, where they were treated no better than inhabitants of a lower social class. The Holocaust took place during World War II, resulting in approximately 6 million Jews being murdered. In 1939, the Second World War began when Arabs in Germany supported Hitler, setting the stage for World War III. Jews pooled their resources and gave their support to the United Kingdom, the United States of America, and the Soviet Union, all on the same side. This was their only opportunity to exact revenge on Hitler, and they received training that they could put to use in the future. When World War II was over, Germany will be left without millions of Jews. The Jews never lost a fight, as they battled relentlessly to protect their own existence. Even when almost all Arab countries launched a coordinated campaign against them, Jews continued to stun the entire world. An intelligence agency known as Mossad played a significant role in this process. After World War II, all countries came together and formed the United Nations to stop and suppress the possibility of future wars. The United Nations formed a special committee and visited Palestine, which reported that Jews are only 1/3 of the total population of Palestine, and 2/3 of the population is Arab, while only 6% of the total land is Jewish. After this, UN committee gave a historic verdict. The only solution possible was to create a country called Israel and give it to the Jews and Palestine to Palestinians. Jerusalem should remain under the control of the United Nations. When proposing a partition in the United Nations, all participating countries voted for it, and in 1947, the UN released a map showing how the partition of Palestine would look and what area would be designated to whom. Before this decision in 1946, the white part of the map showed the Jewish population. However, the partition that the UN had approved was quite shocking because Israel even got that area where there was no Jewish population. The partition that the United Nations had done was not at all happy, but Jews were happy to have Israel as their country. After this decision, Britishers who were ruling this area left, and the next day, Britishers left the Arab countries such as Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Yemen, and Iraq all started war against Israel, and everyone was under the impression that with so many Arab countries attacking together, they would easily win the war. This backfired on Arab countries as a whole because Israel took more land than was allocated to them by the UN. This land was the land that the UN allocated, but Jews captured this entire area into Israel after the war. In 1950, Israel passed a law called the Law of Return, which stated that any Jew residing anywhere in the world would get Israel citizenship, and they were free to come to Israel whenever they felt like it. Egypt was forced to sell its interest to a corporation located in the United Kingdom due to a financial crisis, which ultimately resulted in the sale of the Suez Canal to France and the United Kingdom. At that time, the region surrounding the Suez Canal became very significant from a strategic point of view for the entirety of the world because it connected the region. In 1956, Egypt's Pharaoh Nasser declared that the Suez Canal would be built on his land, granting Egypt complete control over the region. France and the United Kingdom attempted to convince Nasser of their investments in the canal construction, but he ignored their arguments. Nasser's antipathy towards Israel and animosity towards other Arab countries led to Israel being barred from traveling through the canal, causing problems for the country. In 1957, the United Nations attempted to find a solution to the war, forcing Israel to retreat. However, Israel only received a legal agreement guaranteeing that it would never be prevented from going via the Suez Canal like all other countries. This agreement was not met, and the United Kingdom and France had to leave the area empty-handed. In 1964, a gathering of Arab nations in Egypt established the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, which aimed to wrest control of Palestine from Israel and return it to the Palestinian people. The primary objective of the PLO was to wrest control of Palestine from Israel and return it to the Palestinian people. Israel's attack on Egypt caused Egyptian leader Nasser to become angry, and in 1967, Israel began using the Strait of Tiran to ship commodities to other countries. Nasser planned an attack with the help of other Arab countries, but surprisingly, Israel defeated all Arab countries and captured the region of Egypt's land that Israel had previously captured. The United Nations eventually succeeded in returning Egypt's land to them, but other sections of the territory continued to be governed by Israel. 2 years later, Yasser Arafat was elected as chairman of the PLO, and the two countries began engaging in direct combat with one another. The PLO carried out several attacks against the Israeli Defense Forces in 1973, and the Arabs made it clear that any country maintaining diplomatic ties with Israel would be barred from purchasing oil from Arab nations. This continued as normal, and the PLO and other countries realized that defeating Israel would be extremely challenging. Between 1968 and 1977, Palestinians were responsible for hijacking 29 flights and attacking Israel. 5 Palestinians in Germany attacked Israeli athletes during the 1972 Olympics, attracting significant attention from the PLO. Yasser, the head of the PLO, started being called to meetings at the United Nations, and Israel understood that the PLO would become a significant obstacle for them to overcome. The majority of PLO fighters lived in Lebanon, leading to the deaths of almost 18,000 people. This resulted in a significant loss for the PLO and reduced its influence, and by 1988, they concluded that the PLO resembled a state model. In 1993, Israel consented to the Oslo Accord, which declared that Palestine would give back regions under the Gaza Strip and West Bank, and Yasser, the leader of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO, would be made president. This agreement brought peace to both countries, but it did not adhere to its terms, leading to the loss of trust in Israel. Many believed that the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO, would make the situation more difficult due to Israel's involvement. Hamas, formed by radical Palestinians, began attacking Israel in the style of guerrilla warfare, which is not a coordinated form of conflict. The current scenario involves Hamas attacking Israel from the Gaza Strip and Israel attacking 3 to 4 times. The question remains, who would have Jerusalem and who would get their land back? If any politician speaks about peace, the public either disagrees with them or even kills them. Does the conflict between Israel and Palestine seem like a standard David versus Goliath story, where each side takes turns being the underdog and the giant? is the conflict between Israel and Palestine, a bit like a never-ending roller coaster ride where everyone is always waiting for that sudden drop or unexpected turn that makes it hard to tell when the ride will finally end? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a new video.